Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the FQ show, the Football Queenslander show that we'll be bringing you weekly from this setup here at Meakin Park, the home of football. My name's Carlin Penderbury and I'm joined here by my co-host Dan Birrell and Football Queensland commentator Simon Smale. Hey. Guys, how are you today?
Yeah, well, things are starting to dry up. The seats are a bit squeaky, a bit wet, a bit waterlogged.
They were floating quite high downstairs.
But yeah, thankfully we're able to put something together for our viewers, for the punters out there to watch, and thankful to be back and playing football.
Yeah, absolutely. You touched on the floods before. It's been a devastating few weeks for quite a lot of our clubs. You got out to quite a few grounds this week, last week, and over the weeks, and yeah, how's the mood?
Look, got out to a few clubs, both myself and the wider Football Queensland team. We've obviously been helping out at Meakin Park as well, and I know it was something you probably wanted to mention, but a big shout out to Wendy Acton, our mother at Football Queensland, who's managed to put everything back in place, Humpty Dumpty style. So we've had some pretty big things happen down here at Meakin Park, 2.5 metres underwater, and she's been sort of working to make that happen. So huge thanks to Wendy. But in terms of the community, we had some pretty badly affected clubs: Mitchie, East, Toowong, Wynnum, Capalaba, Brisbane City. In Brisbane, as we go up the coast, we'll see Gympie and some of the Sunshine Coast, even up to Maryborough clubs. Out west to Gatton and even Toowoomba was flood affected, and then down south to Moolumbar and Bilambul, Terranora. The clubs, look, they just want to get back on the park. They've invested a lot of time, effort, resource, and money into making sure that happens as well over the last 4 weeks. Some of our clubs, as I said, had only just put in a lot of infrastructure upgrades and lighting. So it was good to get back out there and get a sense of the community. It's just some of the effort and workload they've gone to. Football Australia came up and inspected a few of those venues as well. But as we said, it's been a big few years. So to get back out there is really important for us and to try and return to some sense of normality. Yeah,
well, we're tough up here in Queensland. The last 3 seasons have all been sort of affected in some way or another. 2 with COVID and then 1 starting with the floods. So not off to a great start, but as always, last 2 years we pulled through with full seasons. This year will be no different. So very much looking forward to that. We'll get into covering some of the big moments from around the grounds. And Simon, you covered a big moment yourself, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Lions against Gold Coast Knights. So the reigning champions are getting really overturned by Knights. Knights seemed disappointed last year, I think, in finishing 6th. But they really laid down a marker and said, look, we might not have made finals last year, but we're going to put our hands up and we're going to fight every inch to get into the top 4 this year, and to score 6 goals away at Lions, a team that over the years have been famed for their defence, was a real shock. And Lions being 3-1 up at one stage in that contest, you kind of thought that could have been game over, but I mean, fair play to Knights. They continued to fight. They played some fantastic football. They moved the ball around so well. They've got a lot of playmakers in that team now. It's not just on Mitch Nichols' shoulders. Pasquale De Vita, who's made the switch from Toowoomba, he was sensational, absolutely sensational. He scored a really good goal as well. There's a couple of goals at the end that sort of put a little bit of a flourish on the result. But 6-3, I mean, that's a big benchmark result. And Lions were a bit shocked. I mean, Tommy Jarrett coming off the field after the match said to Darren Syme that he didn't really know what happened from a defensive point of view. So Darren Syme said he was going to have a sleepless night on Saturday night. There's a bit to work on there.
That's back-to-back fixtures as well for Lions and Knights at Lions Stadium last year, this year, that have, I guess, turned pulsating results for us, haven't they, as well? As we know, round 1 last year when we did get off the ground, and then coincidentally this being round 4 now, but the first game of the season. The big one as well, I noticed, and we mentioned it just before the show started, Simon, as well, and Joe Duckworth mentioned it on an interview last night. I think that's probably the first time Lions have conceded 6 goals in a game, at least in my recollection, and to concede 5 in the space of 25 minutes, half an hour, is momentous.
Well, following on from Solomon Islands result, and I know it was a pre-season friendly and there was a fair few changes, they conceded 4 in that game as well, so that's 10 in 2 games at home for the Lions. So, again, there's a few new players in that back 4. There's a new goalkeeper as well, of course. Yeah. And it's a big change from Luke Berean, to be honest. So it's going to take a little bit of time to I guess, reset and get themselves back into a position where they're all comfortable with each other. But yeah, I mean, look, it's early in the season. I don't think we need to be throwing up the white flag just yet for Lions' perspective in terms of their defence. But yeah, it's it's a big result.
Well, the Lions did cop another loss as well. Unfortunately, hearing the news of Finn Beakhurst doing his knee really badly, that's very much a shame. We were just talking with him with the Australia Cup draws last week, so yeah, he was really keen for the season. That's a big loss for Lions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been following Finn since he was down at Bentley, and then he came up, obviously, played St George and won the Brisbane Premier League there, and then made the transition to Lions, was the Mike Cockrell medalist for the FFA Cup last year. Yeah. His trajectory was on the up and up and up, as we know, and at 23, 24 years old, he'll come back from this, but it's certainly as a football supporter and spectator for myself, disheartening to see those sort of injuries happen.
He made a difference when he came on as well. Like he had COVID last week, which is why he was starting on the bench, you'd think. I mean, he came on, really injected some pace, injected some impetus back into the Lions side that were, starting to teeter under the weight of the pressure that Knights were giving them. So, yeah, it's a big absence. It's a big loss for them for the year, and fingers crossed that he recovers well and gets back on the field, because he's an exciting player.
Absolutely, all the best, Finn, and hope the recovery goes well. Dan, your moment of the rounds, also an NPL game. But
I'll probably highlight the Brisbane City versus Olympic game at Goodwin. Olympic managed to turn around their pitch and their damage quite quickly and got back out on the park. Ended up being a 1-0 result to Olympic through a cracking goal through a Carter. It was a sensational finishing around the 30th minute. But we also saw another injury, unfortunately, through Matt Smith and Zach Keeple, who had a head knock, and it is on the highlights. It's quite nasty looking. But hopefully both of those boys are ready to go and recovering in the coming weeks. But again, I think they're two clubs that are quite strong this year, as we know City and Olympic to be, and I think that's indicative of the result, 1-0.
Yeah, and a bit of a sort of cultural clash there as well for those two clubs, but would have liked it to have been a bit as high scoring as the Lions Knights game, but it was still a quality display of football from both sides in that game. So,
City just coming up. I mean, that's a big result. I mean, it's a good,
very much
probably not a bad game for them to lose straight up, because it playing against a team that have been one of the benchmark teams they obviously went through last year, completely undefeated. This will be. Nobody wants to lose matches, but this will be a match that Matt Smith will be able to look at and say, okay, look, it is going to be hard this year. We are going to have to step up, and the players that they've brought in are going to have to mesh and meld in, and Matt Smith himself's probably going to be absent for a couple of weeks with that head gash. So, it's not a bad introduction to City, because it does show that they can mix it with the best teams in the league.
Around the grounds elsewhere, Eastern Suburbs got up over Capalaba. They actually played their game at AJ Kelly Park this week because the clubhouse went underwater. So thank you to Peninsula for being able to host them there. That was quite good. Brisbane Raw Youth against Logan Lightning. They had a 2-2 draw. It's quite a good result for Logan Lightning against a Raw team that had Cyrus Demi and Eli Adams, surprisingly, in the starting lineup there. Yeah,
it was only 3 weeks ago. We mentioned, obviously, Eli had trucked it over to Germany to have an opportunity there, and he's come back in the last week or two. So obviously was maintained on their roster and was able to sort of slot back into the lineup now, which was fantastic for them. Logan as well. With the debut of Carlos Saliader. Fantastic keeper for them. Was the skipper. Played really, really well as well to keep them in the game. And then I'll let you touch on the Lex too. There's probably one big result there that we saw.
Yes, the Sunshine Coast Wanderers defeating the 2021 and 2020 Premiers Peninsula Power. Quite a fiery game. From the highlights of the match that I saw, Wanderers were giving it to Peninsula Power there. They're really on the front foot. They also blew out the 3 red cards in that game. 1 for Wanderers and 2 for Power. Simon.
Well, Wanderers were a team that were fighting for the top 4 last year. They were a strong side, and it's good to see that they're going to continue to battle and to continue to push on. It wasn't just a one-season wonder. And
absolutely.
That's a real testament to the work that they're doing up there in creating that winning culture. Peninsula Power, they had a couple of players leave in the off-season. Did get a little bit heated. Power games, sometimes have a tendency to be physical. They do play a physical brand of football. So it's, that obviously boiled over a little bit, perhaps a little bit of frustration as well with the scoreline. It sets things up pretty nicely for this coming weekend, it has to be said.
They'll be without Brody Boyce and Brenton Fox. So one new player who was a Sunny Coast Wanderers boy last year. They'll be out without both of those players for the Lions game next week or this weekend. So that'll be tough for them. And then the final game of the round, Gold Coast United, Moreton Bay. drawing that one. Gold Coast United had an early lead, and then Moreton Bay brought it back. So,
yeah, off the set piece, again off the corner, a couple of missed kicks, etc., and ended up in the back of the net late in the game. So a one all fixture there. Probably the one thing, and I'll let you go and do the results, but something to keep in mind, which was quite exciting when we talk about connecting the pyramid. So 41 fixtures across Brisbane kicking off on the weekend. As we know, Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast will join this weekend, the FQPL on the Gold Coast. Up in Central and Wide Bay, they've kicked off, and then the North, as has Whitsunday Coast, Townsville and Cairns to come. But across just in the metro region, from NPL all the way down to FQPL 6, 41 fixtures in the men's competition, 4 decided by 3 or more goals. Every other game was decided by 2 or less goals. Which, as we see start to come some stability within those competitions and results, we won't hopefully start to see some of those maybe blowouts and teams not necessarily being where they're sort of meant to be based in terms of fixtures, which is great.
Good start, Dan.
Huge. Little start, 41 fixtures, 4 decided by 3 or more.
Yeah, well, we'll move on to the FQPL 1, and where my moment of the week comes. South West Queensland Thunder hosted Western Pride at Clive Burkhofer Stadium. Went into the break 2-0 up. Pride brought it back to 2-2 sort of fairly early in the second half before Wilfred Phillip with a good rounding of the keeper and then slotting it past him in the 92nd minute to take it home for Thunder. So that's a very good start for a side that has been very much up there in the FQPL leagues. I'd love to see them really sort of take that good start and finish high.
Yeah, I mean, 2 teams you'd expect to be there or thereabouts when it comes to deciding promotion from the FQPL 1. Yeah, I mean, that's a good result for Thunder. Again, they've lost a couple of players in the off-season. It's important, but they
big players too.
Exactly, really important players. And we saw Pascal De Vita at Lions Stadium, just how good a player he is. So big shoes to fill. So that's a good start and good competitive game.
Absolutely. Caboolture FC, they got up over Southside Eagles in their first FQPL 1 fixture, getting up 2-1.
Bit of a confidence one for them. Get straight off the mark, 2-1 up against Southside. Obviously say, we're here, we deserve to be in this league, we're promoted, 100%. We're going to be competitive. So
yeah, and Magpies Crusaders United getting up over Sunny Coast, who made the trek up to Soligenkin, got up 3-1. Ipswich Knights also beat Mitchelton. They played out at Ebbvale Field, I believe.
They did. Stan McRae, so they sustained a fair bit of damage at Eric Evans Field. So they were playing at their complementary field just across town.
Yeah, absolutely. So that just about rounds up the FQPL 1 fixtures there. Moving on to the FQPL 1 women's fixtures. We'll move on to your segment shortly where we'll preview this comp in a little bit more detail. But Peninsula Power, they got off to a pretty good start there with a win over Virginia.
Well, a team that only got 1 point last year.
Yeah.
Alex Smith is coach there, and he's had a bit of time now to sort of set the team up how he wants them to set up. And that's a fantastic start for Power and for Alex Smith. So, real positive signs. Virginia United, they had some really good moments last year. They played some really good football at times as well. So for Power to get the 3 points straight away, I mean, what that will do for confidence, I mean, you can't underestimate that. So really important, really impressive.
I think with Peninsula as well, and as you mentioned and touched upon, Alex Smith is well known to Queensland audiences through his own playing career in the NPL up here, and as we know, had chances in the A-League as well and played some football there. He obviously went down, learned his trade down there at Melbourne City under, I can't remember, Smale, you probably remember the coach, the guy who was at the Brisbane Roar a few years ago, but regardless, learned under him at Melbourne City, and then's come back up, and what you can tell he wants to do at Power is make it a project. It's not just going to be I'm here for a year or so. It's, hey, I'm here for 3 or 4 years. Let's have sustained growth. Let's push back into the NPL space. And he wants to build it there, which is fantastic, and credit to him.
Even towards the back end of last season, you saw when he came sort of halfway through the year, you actually saw some improved results. Obviously, the competition did split, and so the NPL women's side sort of moved up, and FQPL women's sort of stabilised a little bit. But they had that improvement, and so it'd be really good to see them sort of kick on this year. They've started well. 3 points from the opening week. That's all you can ask.
Rado Vidicic. Sorry. Rado Vidicic. That's who he's under at Man City. Anyway, moving on.
Just come to you,
It did.
Then in the SWQ Thunder Western Pride match, that was actually a double header at Clive Burkhofer. Western Pride got up in the women's match, so that was good to see. Goals to April Gleeson and Jacinda Perrin there. So
They'll be strong again this year. Western Pride, as we know, they've got sort of the big three: Abby Lloyd, April Gleeson, and Meg McElliott, as well as a number of younger players coming through from their 23s. And Western Pride, they'll be absolutely quite a strong team this year too.
Yeah, I was surprised they actually went into the FQPL1 last year. I think that was probably a bit of a disappointment for them. So for them to get off and running for 3 points, pretty important.
Absolutely. Looking at some other games from around the grounds, Mitchelton got up over Logan Lightning 4-1. Great start to their campaign. I'd just like to call out one of the goal scorers from this match, Callie Purifoy. She played at Central FC in Gladstone last year, came down this year. It's a new signing for Mitchelton. She scored quite a lot of goals up at Central. I'm not 100% sure how many, but it was 30, 40 plus, a lot of goals. Yeah. I hope I'm not very wrong with that, but yes, it was great to see her get off to a start. She got a hat-trick in this game, so 3 goals and 3 points to the start of her season. And great stuff for Mitchie. Good sign.
Look, it's great to see players coming from regional areas where there isn't the depth of talent pool that there is in the city, and players who have dominated in that region to then come down into the big city and to actually perform at that level as well. It just shows that there is so much talent out there, and that can only be a good thing. Of course, it's only the first game of the season, but it's not a bad way to kick things off.
Yeah, and I think we've seen it across both the men and the women over the last few years. We've seen regional players, as you said, Smale, come down. And the Kappa Women's Super Cup from last year has been really good with that. Being able to showcase through the stream some of that regional talent. We've already got this year in the juniors, Thomas Waddingham from Edge Hills come down. He's playing in the Raw setup this year. But we see it as well in the women's and in the girls' space as well. It gives opportunities for them to push and actually apply themselves a little bit more. So
absolutely. And then rounding out the results from the FQPL1 women's was Brisbane City against the Gap, played out of Walton Bridge, the Gap's home ground. Brisbane City made that their own though, winning 4-1. So a good start to their season. I think they'll go far in sort of pushing for that title there. Yeah,
they'll be strong this year. Brisbane City, one of 3 or 4 teams probably that are going to be thereabouts. Gap will be disappointed, and it seems like they're on a bit of a downward trajectory at the moment. So that's a shame, but fingers crossed they can improve over the course of the year.
Yeah, good stuff. Moving on, we're going to cover the regional roundup now. Dan obviously touched on before the number of competitions that went on in the regions, but here we'll sort of cover on a few of the highlights from around the state that we'll look to do each week as well, just to really sort of amplify some of those competitions up in places that wouldn't normally get a bit of coverage. So we'll start smack bang in the middle with Mackay here on the Whitsunday coast. What a cracking game this was. Magpies Crusaders United and Mackay Wanderers in the FQPL 3, a 6-all draw. Goals galore.
Played the curtain raiser at Solidinkin before the Fire game as well, and that serves as Magpies Crusaders under 23s team. So they're always quite a competitive team and outfit that pushes forward and attacks. A lot of those younger players quite quick, etc.
They don't want to defend though.
No defending apparently at the back. But obviously that competition's well underway now with the first 2 rounds completed, and as you're about to cover as well, the Northern Women's round 1 has kicked off. The men's kicks off this weekend. Some great clashes in that one. And then we've got the final in golf competition beginning in April. They've been hit by their own wet weather. As we know, the north often gets hit by with the tropical thunderstorms at the moment. Yeah,
monsoonal season. Moving to Bundaberg, the central region. Rockhampton. Central FC and Frenchville played out in a 1-all draw. 2 very big teams in that region. Premiers, I believe, the Premiers Grand Final winners. Fantastic game. Great start to the competition there. Both starting with a point, none of them starting with a win. So
Central and Frenchville, both of them are quite strong at times. As I said, Frenchville, and as you mentioned, Frenchville coming from the wooden spoon position to try and compete in that competition this year. The other one in that comp was Clinton, got up 12-0. Which was a nice big win as well to start their season with aplomb. And then moving obviously right along.
Yeah, I know in the Wide Bay there are actually some big results for across the waves. I think their men's team won 14-0 and their women's team won 12-1, I believe.
That is correct.
Some
the powerhouse in Wide Bay across the waves.
A lot of goals at across the waves. Moving down to the SEQ conference. 2-1 Ipswich City Bulls versus Caboolture in the FQPL 3 women's competition. Not a bad start to the Ipswich City team this season.
Yeah, bouncing back. They were in what was previously the BWPL 2 years ago, was the Premiers. Dipped out last year. A couple of their players moved on to other clubs and then back in it this year. Obviously strong result for them against Caboolture. And the FQPL 2 women's kicking off this week as well. Last weekend we saw some strong results from Broadbeach up against Ipswich Knights. And then we also saw Rabina 4-0 over Easts and Grange 4-0 over the Lakes. And Grange will be looking to go on the up and up as well.
Yeah, fantastic. It'll be good to see. Moving out to the Darling Downs, the highlight from this region was the men's FQPL 3 team, the Gatton Redbacks beating Premiers St Albans 2-1. Gatton, as you touched on before, had a bit of flood damage out that way, so it was good for them to start their season very strongly with a very big statement win over the reigning Premiers.
Yep. It should be competitive, and it's good to see that the premiers and champions across the competitions aren't necessarily getting their own way, and that can only be good for the competition no matter what level it is. Yeah,
absolutely. Now we'll move to your segment, I suppose we'll call it, but we'll touch on we've touched on these the results and stuff so far, but the FQPL 1 women's got started this weekend, so we'd like to sort of preview a few of those teams in a little bit more detail, and the FQPL 2 men's team also kicked off. So we'll start off with the girls. Simon, what are your thoughts on this league?
Look, I mentioned it just before. Western Pride, it's a surprise to me for Western Pride winning this competition. I thought they would be, not necessarily up at the top of the NPL, but they'd certainly be challenging. They've got some really top quality players in that side. They made the final of the Capital Women's Super Cup last year, albeit in a match that they were completely blown away by Lions. But they should be strong. They should be strong in this competition. They've got to win on the weekend to get things started. I expect them to be challenging top 1 or top 2. But there are a lot of strong teams in this competition now. Brisbane City, they will be no pushovers at all. Again, big statement win over the Gap. 4 goals to kickstart your season, a home game away from home. That's not necessarily too bad, not too shabby. Olympic will be strong. Sorry, not Olympic. It will be Peninsula Power. Again, struggled a lot last year. They've got to win as well. It's very hard to read into things at the start of the season, but there's a lot of teams up there who are going to be tight and are going to be really fighting out for wins. I think it's going to be very few blowouts this year. It's all going to be very tight, all very competitive.
Absolutely. I think that, again, we talk about the connected pyramid. There's an opportunity for 2 clubs to push into the NPL at the conclusion of the season. We'll see, obviously, the transition of a couple of clubs up from FQPL 2 as well in the women. I think as you've touched upon across the board, it will be a very tight competition in that women's space.
And hopefully not as many blowout scores. I think with the NPL women's sort of really, that breakout last year will really help that. And then teams that struggled a lot last year will actually be able to have a chance to build themselves a bit of a playing identity and actually be able to play some more and just not have to worry about just sitting back against the big teams and then just sort of working it out elsewhere around the fixtures. So
it gives teams a lot of confidence as well if they know they're coming up against these big powerhouse teams, Lions and the like, and they can go into their shell and they can get blown away. And we saw that quite a lot last year. But when they're looking at teams that finished there or thereabouts alongside them last year, you're right, they can express themselves. I forgot to mention Mitchelton in this competition. They're going to be a really strong side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They took Lions to a draw last year in a 3-3 fixture out at Terrell. But it was only 2 times throughout the season that the Lions dropped points, if you want to say that, that in the East game. So, absolutely, Mitchelton will be a very strong outfit as well. And the other thing to note, obviously, with the professional competitions, with the FQPL women's kicking off last week and the window opening, we've got a month now where some player transfer and movement will happen amongst the clubs as well, leading to the NPL women's. And that's an exciting little element as well with those 2 competitions to be deemed as professional.
Yeah, and you'd expect players like Meg McElligott to come back to Western Pride and fit in back there. So that'll be a very big returning player for them to come back.
Yeah, she's vital for them, and she's spoken about how much she enjoyed playing out at Western Pride. She's picked up a couple of different clubs over the course of the years.
Just a few.
In the NPL. But it seems like she's found a bit of a home out at Ipswich. And Abby Lloyd, you mentioned earlier on, she's a real talent. And, she's had her spells at the Raw. She was South West Queensland Thunder as well.
Yes.
Malabar too. Again, picked up another couple of clubs, but she was fantastic for Western Pride last year. And again, it was her inclusion that really started to turn the tide and get those positive results for Pride towards the end of the season. It wasn't quite enough for them to get into the NPL. But again, you'd expect those 2 players, of high quality, to continue that vein of form.
Absolutely. Moving on to the FQPL 2 men's. We've got 2 new entrants this year that weren't there last year. We've got Surfers Paradise Apollo and Albany Creek Excelsior Dan, would you like to talk about their additions to the competition this year?
Yeah, so Albany Creek qualifying through their first place in what was previously the BPL, now with the FQPL 3 Metro. And then obviously we have the playoff between second place in Brisbane just by volume. They've got 4 leagues below underpinning that. And then each of the regional premiers from the SCQ region, Sunshine Coast, Darling Downs and South Coast. Service Paradise winning the playoff through a strong win against initially Namboy and Dina, and then another strong win against Bayside in that final. So we saw them come up, Ace come up, and then as we also saw, Wynnum, Souths and Holland Park came down to make that league of 12. Probably isn't a closer league, in my opinion, throughout the state. All of these games can be sort of coin flips, and we saw that in the results on the weekend. Again, there wasn't much between any of the games. The Service Paradise Coomera one being sort of the marker for Service Paradise to enter the league and getting over the top 6-3. But as we saw there as well, Albany Creek and Grange, very tight, always rivals those two teams, as we know. Sanford and South. Sanford coming in and going, hey, we're meant to be here. A 2-0 win over Souths. So
yeah, fantastic.
Surfers Paradise, strong team, strong club, and we've seen over the course of a competition that used to be known as the FFA Cup, the Australia Cup. They've competed well with NPL clubs in the not too distant past in that, and I think again in a very tight league, if they start to get a bit of a roll on, then they could really be pushing for promotion sort of straight up. So
absolutely. I mean, Philly Lazum joining there as well now in the middle. Bruno Rodriguez has been there for a number of years as well on the Gold Coast, but he's at an NPL quality. They've just got some really good talent across the park.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic to see them go well and just really climb and see how far they can go in a relatively short space. I believe they could be in that FQ. They believe as well, I think, that they could be in that FQPL 1 side.
Well, and it shows. I mean, the Gold Coast competition is a very strong competition. There's a lot of very talented players in that competition. So for them to now have the opportunity to progress up the ladder, connecting the pyramid, getting into the statewide competitions, look, they're going to be chomping at the bit to show that, yeah, do you know what? We are really strong and we are going to be competitive there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you called the grand final of that game, of that competition last year, which was an absolute belter.
Such a good game, yes.
Grange Thistle had an amazing win and a few highlights from that game.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, you spoke about it being a bit of a blinder of a match. I mean, it felt like it turned on the penalty. Jaron Miller made the save, in the 85th minute? And then the goal, a dramatic, brilliant wonder goal, just a couple of minutes later, and that completely flipped everything and just showed that Grange Thistle are going to be one of the teams to beat. And again, they're going to want to build on that. They're going to want to say, yeah, okay, like we were champions, and now we can move on and get into get in as premiers as well and progress up the leagues. And they should be strong. And they showed against Caboolture. Sure, it was a one-off game, but again, tight league. You always have to have that caveat, but it is, again, you'd have to expect them to be there or thereabouts.
And they've kept a very similar squad to what they have, or what they had last year as well this year, which I think is something that can very easily build on, given that they know how they play, they know how they want to play. Glenn Volker will get them going to grind out some good results there. So
experienced coach as well in Glenn. Yeah. So he's
obviously coach at the NPL level, and as you mentioned, as touched upon as well, Carl, is their big thing at Grange now is pushing around youth. They've still got the talisman and Matty Hornby hanging around as well, but they are really big in pushing through under 23s players, and you saw that throughout the season last year. A number of their players who had played 10, 12, 15 games in 23s ended up starting in the final series for them.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really good to see that. It's what the leagues and what the under 23s league really is for that promotion of youth and really kind of pushing them in. Taringa were also pretty close in and around the mix there. Got knocked out by Grange Thistle in the quarterfinal last year. How do you reckon they'll go? They've got Sean Basis back again, Golden Boot for 2021.
Yeah, look, I mean, if he can continue to score goals like he scored last season, then yeah, absolutely, they're going to have to be in consideration. It's always difficult that sort of second season after you've had such a strong season before, because every defender's going to know you're there, and there'll probably be some pretty agricultural challenges sort of going his way early on in matches, just to let defenders get their own back from being scored against last year. But yeah, again, they're still a strong team, and I feel like this is a real competition that's going to be done on momentum. If the team can get momentum and start getting into that winning habit, then it's going to be really hard to shake them out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you talked about the three teams that dropped down from the FQPL 1 league: Wynnum, Holland Park and Souths. It's good. Graham Fife is back not back, but back playing at least, and playing for Wynnum this year. That's awesome to see. And yeah, South Holland Park, how they will adjust to wanting to try and rebound back up into that FQPL 1 competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all have quality programs, as we know. Denny at Holland Park, Denny Newdick, he absolutely wants to push straight back into FQPL1. He's a very motivated and aspirational coach, so he wants to be playing it and coaching at that level. And then, as you said, Fifey going back to Wynnum. Wynnum, as we know, invested heavily in their infrastructure and their facilities and want to be able to keep pushing on the door to get back up to those top leagues and potentially in NSD in the long term.
When you've got those 3 teams that go down as well, it was a relatively small FQPL1 team, so 3 is quite a high percentage. So, I mean, you could look at it from another perspective and say those teams probably all feel quite unlucky to be, in one of those 3 to go down. So they'll be definitely looking to push back forward.
Absolutely.
There wouldn't be a season preview without a couple of hot takes from our guest Simon here. For both of those leagues just mentioned before, a hot take for both of those, if you will, putting you on the spot here.
Hot take. Western Pride to win the premiership in the women's. Closely followed by Mitchelton, I think. Get the 2
bit of dark horse
green teams. Yeah, we'll go.
Dark horse, Mustangs, I don't mind that.
There we go.
Good, yeah, I like that. In terms of FQPL 2, I do like Surfers Paradise. I think Surfers Paradise Apollo could run the league. I really think they could actually win by quite a distance. And then it'll be throw a net over the rest. Perhaps Grange Thistle getting up there into that second promotion spot.
Fantastic, that'll be exciting to see. Let's see if they
look forward to that being completely refuted in a few months' time.
Got it on camera. All right, we'll move around to some other business at the moment just before we get into the previews. This week is actually Harmony Round. Harmony Week is about inclusiveness, respect and belonging for all Australians. Obviously the game that we play, football, it is for everyone, and it's great to see so many programs that are out there at the moment that can just bring everyone in, and that's what football does. It brings people in and creates memories and stories together.
Yeah, I mean, our participation team's been out and about with schools and in the communities and clubs this week and over the last couple of months as well. We know Sam looks after the Connecting Through Sport program that's held at a number of our clubs that pushes in to Clubland through the school connection, and then he's out there promoting the Mini Roos Multicultural Settlement program, which is fantastic. And as you said, there's no other sport, in my opinion, that is a game for all and is so inclusive in allowing anyone from any background or cultural and linguistic diversity background to come together and play something so special and unifying.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure everyone's heard me butcher as many different names from around the world over the course of the years, and that again, that's a testament. It's lots of different people, from all over the world coming and playing over here and playing in Queensland, and we're really blessed to see a lot of foreign players come and actually play here. So yeah, it is great to see. Slightly different tack, but the power chair football competition as well got underway last weekend. So again, football's for everybody. No matter of in terms of people living with disabilities as well. So it's really great to see that competition get back underway too. So yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, this weekend will actually be FQ's Harmony Round, where we will be highlighting everything we're talking about.
A number of the stories and a number of those.
One of those matches and one of those stories is actually Ronga Eagles and Aldbridge in Salisbury in the FQPL 6 playing this weekend. 2 Q League teams who came up into the pyramid system from Q League. That'll be fantastic for them, and they'll be both strong competitors in that league, no doubt. But yeah, that'll be a great spectacle.
Yeah, highlighting the transition from having those leagues, as we said, the Q League. It's meant to be that initial first foray for a lot of people that have moved here, differently cultural backgrounds, and then pushing into playing in competitive and organised outdoor football. So absolutely 2 aspirational clubs again, both wanting to sort of move their way up through the pyramid. Yoronga from an El Salvador background, and then Aldbridge from a Bosnian background as well. And as you said, both will expect to be quite strong in that league this year.
And for more Harmony Week activations and to see campaigns and that sort of stuff for this week and across this week, make sure you head to the Football Queensland website and follow our social channels. We'll make sure to be highlighting some of those. We've got a behind the whistle and Coach the Code. Yeah, we've got a few activations there throughout this week that we'll highlighting this and
touch upon and it's very exciting, and be sure to check out the Football Queensland website.
Let's have a look through the fixtures, and there are some absolute tasty ones. We'll start Eastern Suburbs up against Moreton Bay. It'll be quite a tight tussle after some good results for both teams. Gold Coast Knights taking on Capalaba to see if they can ride that high of knocking off the champions, and Capalaba will have to be up for the fight after their first round defeat. Gold Coast United up against Brisbane City. That'll be another tight game, but
great Piddick up against Matt Smith.
Yes.
Two friendly foes, and obviously Matt was playing undergrade for a period there at Gold Coast Knights a few years ago, and I think that'll be a really close game.
Yeah, fantastic. And then the two big games this weekend, we've got the champions versus the premiers, who are currently sitting 12th and 13th respectively. They go up against each other at 7 o'clock on Saturday night.
Well, I mean, dish that one up, because that's what you want to see, isn't it? The two top teams from last year, both coming off defeats. One that could have expected, one that you certainly didn't. There might be a little bit of feeling there as well, because Andy Pengelly, of course, got top scorer for Peninsula Power last year. He's now with Lions. Things got quite interesting in the pre-season game between the two teams. There's a few words exchanged. I just feel like we should remind the teams that it's Harmony Week, Harmony round. I don't know what sort of harmony we're going to get at Lions Stadium on Saturday night, but that is absolutely one of the top games. You'd love to see it.
And then another big one, Brisbane Roar against Olympic on the Sunday afternoon. That'll be fantastic. Just the youth of Cyrus Demi, Eli Adams now back, fantastic. And then Olympic will just ground out that 1-0 win. It'd be good to see them come up against a very good young Roar side.
Well, they met in the semi-final last year's season, and obviously Olympic got the jump on Roar, but the Roar was so good last year. Yeah, really interesting to see how they go. And if Olympic win, then they're potentially going to have 6 points over one of Lions or Peninsula Power. So, even at this early stage of the season, 6 points is 6 points.
Absolutely, definitely a great start. And rounding out the weekend, Sunny Coast Wanderers are hosting Logan Lightning. There's going to be tight clashes all around in this competition. It's fantastic to see. The FQPL 1 Women's, Western Pride are hosting Peninsula Power, which I think will be a very interesting test for Penn Power, for Alex Smith's girls there. Logan Lightning are hosting Brisbane City. The Gap are hosting South West Queensland Thunder. And Virginia United take on Mitchelton. Some interesting ties there, and we'll possibly see some early leaders in that competition, or some early fight.
Yeah, the only one I'll mention as well in the men's, just the one fixture I'd highlight in the FQPL ones will be Graham Harvey Redlands up against Mitchelton, Dan Panisi out at Redlands Showgrounds again, or Compass Oval. So that'll be a good game as well. Both two teams that think they should be there and abouts in the top four as well, which would be a great fixture.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know that Magpies are flying out to Clive Burkhofer this week, so that'll be a big away day for Magpies. But so that'll be another cracking game to watch.
Yeah, good test for Thunder that as well, because Magpies have been going really well. Flying pretty high. Playing some pretty decent football as well. They look like they've got a strong team this year, and again, two of our regional sides in the competition. It's good to see them go head to head. Absolutely.
Yeah. One last thing before we close off, I'd just like to highlight the FQ Academy holiday clinics that have been delivered across the state to help boys and girls aged 9 to 14 develop functional game skills, including first touch, striking the ball, running with the ball, and 1v1. These will be delivered in many regions across the state, in Brisbane, Pimpama, Stanthorpe, Kawana, Harvey Bay, Bundaberg, Rockhampton, Gladstone, Emerald, Mackay, Townsville, and Cairns. Yeah. Quite a lot.
All of them. Pretty much everywhere across the state.
Great amount of coverage. So the first clinics start around April 4th. Make sure you head to the Football Queensland webpage for more information on that and to get an early bird offer on pricing for that. I believe it's only $70 for a holiday clinic that is
3 days.
3 days. Great value.
Really good.
Good fun holiday activity for the kids. We did an FFA Cup, or an Australia Cup draw. It's going to take a while to get over that one, isn't it? Yeah. We did an Australia Cup draw and a Cup Women's Super Cup draw last week, and some great ties came out of the bowl that day. That was good.
Yeah, they did, absolutely. And there's some really interesting ones. Lions going to have to go to strikers.
Classic battle, that one. Borian and Farina up against their old team.
Absolutely.
Tasty.
Yeah, Jean-Luc Borian is going to be chomping at the bit to put out a really
always
good
have something to say as well, Luke, I'm sure.
He won't be quiet. That's a certainty. And a couple of tough ties for the FQPL 6 teams. Ridge Hills United hosting Southside Eagles, Yoronga Eagles taking on Brisbane City. I mean, that's a really tough time.
And very unexpected for Brisbane City, though. That they're not going to know what to come up against there.
Absolutely.
I reckon the Yeronga boys will rate themselves just quietly. I reckon they'll be up for it.
Absolutely.
The magic of the cup. That's what it's about, I suppose. And then in the Wide Bay, across the waves, and Fraser Flames will meet on the 23rd. So, this weekend. So that'll be good.
Yeah, well, it's first v second from last year up in Wide Bay.
The 25th, sorry. Yes.
Really, really good contest.
Yeah, fantastic. Couple in the Super Cup. We've got a couple of really good ties as well. Annerley in the FQPL 2 up against Nambour Yandina United from Sunshine Coast. UQFC are taking on Taringa Rovers. That'll be an interesting battle.
League foes. Will be good.
Yep. And Southside Eagles are taking on Maroochydore. So a bit of an away day for them.
Yeah, FQPL 3, both Sunshine Coast and Metro. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see where the strengths in the respective regions lie.
Yeah, are these fixtures across for the Australia Cup and Kaplan Super Cup?
Yeah, so they'll be played April 5th and 6th is for both, and a couple of those fixtures, the Cap Women's Super Cup, may be pushed to the weekend just due to travel. I know Southside Eagles and Maroochydore in discussions at the moment to arrange that for the weekend prior. So they'll all be midweek for the remainder of this season as well. All of our Australia Cup fixtures will predominantly be midweek, given the weeks we've lost down in southeast Queensland due to the rain.
Yeah, nice. Well, once those fixtures are released, they'll be put on the Football Queensland website, so make sure to head there for all your updates.
Cup football under lights, that's not bad, is it?
Yes, fun times. A bit of midweek action, exciting. Well, thank you guys for the show today, joining the FQ show. We had a great chat, it was good.
It's been a challenging one. We've little do our viewers know, we've had all things happening throughout this segment or throughout the show. Lights on and off, power on and off, mice perhaps running up legs, so little friends and visitors.
Stay tuned for the blooper reel at the end of the season for that one.
Absolutely. Thanks for having myself, Carl.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for joining us, Simon. It's good to have you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, and really great to just have football back. I know a lot of clubs have had some really tough times, but all of them were just looking forward to just getting out on the field again, and it's great that we're able to facilitate that. And from a spectator point of view, it's great we're able to watch it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Episode 1 of the FQ show will be available on Facebook, YouTube, and for audio listeners on Spotify. Thanks for joining us. I hope you had a good time watching, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you.